With over 500,000 trees and shrubs already planted and growing, it's easy to forget you are in the city. We don't just say, we do. It's the Stained City way.
Hello and welcome to Real Talk right here on SABC 3. Breastfeeding is a natural and vital human act, but if you're not a mother and you don't have a child to feed, why should you be concerned? Well, because it's a public health issue affecting millions across the globe. Investment, education and support for breastfeeding could help prevent 800,000 child deaths per year. In 2012, South Africa had the lowest exclusive breastfeeding rate in the world, a mere 8%. Since then, progress has been made and rates have increased, but stigma and discrimination remain a problem. Mothers still face disgust and anger for breastfeeding their children in public. To unpack this complex and layered topic, I'm joined by two remarkable women with a frank and an honest approach to navigating through mommyhood. Olwethu Leshabane as well as Tanya Korvaski. Finally, I have both of you here. Finally.
And finally we have you here.
and finally, I now have a child, so you and I can...
And we've got so much in common, because you've got a child, I've got two kids, I mean...
Look at us here.
Could be twins.
So first thing I want to ask is, do you feel, Tanya, I'll come to you, do you feel the pressure, did you feel the pressure to breastfeed? Because, you know, we'll get to us not being allowed to breastfeed in public, according to some people, but initially there's just always this, are you going to breastfeed question. Did you feel that?
Absolutely. And when I had my son 8 years ago, kind of the norm was, okay, let's just reach 3 months, yay.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of changed, it feels a lot longer. Now it's like 1 year, but maybe it's 2 years. So it feels like there's pressure to do it for longer, and absolutely there's pressure to breastfeed. I feel it on Facebook, I feel it on the parenting pages, the mom pages, and we are our own worst judges, you know. So let's say I got to 14 months, but it's not good enough. I should have gone to 2 years at least.
Olwethu, you said you breastfed your first child up until 7 months, eh?
Yes.
How did you take that decision? Is it something you always wanted to do? Were the mothers hovering over you? What was our breastfeed like?
No, for me, I was like, I'm young, I don't want my boobs sagging. Oh my gosh. And then, but I mean, I breastfed, and then I sort of, it wasn't stopping completely, but I was breastfeeding now and again. So we're out and he really just wants the boob, and I'd give it to him. But for me, it was, my boobs are sagging. They actually go that way.
They go south, guys. It just goes
so it was like,
south.
I still want more kids. Like, can you save some for the other kids?
Did you never worry that, because when I breastfed Alec until he was 3 months, and then he had teeth, so I was like, It was fine when you were just like, now you're out here chewing, so sorry, buddy. You know, but I always had the fear that he was not eating enough, like he's hungry, so he'd have the boob and he'd get the bottle. Did you not have that fear?
I did, and in fact, in the early days, my baby wasn't eating enough, and she, you know, I'd give her a bottle, and it was like she'd never seen food, literally, before. So yeah, I did have to supplement a little bit, and something that I also felt guilty about, because, you know, the activists are saying, well, you have to breastfeed exclusively, and I kind of read that as, well, I'm a failure if I supplement with formula. But yeah, there's this worry, are they getting enough? But, you know, I think she was getting enough
so
eventually.
When you say activists, sorry, I'm quite also blind to other people telling me what to do with my life.
Yeah.
But surely activists know that some women can't produce milk even if they had a child. And yes, you take pills and you do things, but sometimes it just doesn't work. That's a reality, right, Tanya? That
Absolutely.
Some women just can't get breast milk.
And I completely get that. I've got friends who've been there. They feel very guilty that they had to quit at, 3 months and 6 months. But the activists might be saying, well, keep trying, keep trying. You need to express, you need to eat this, you need to take these herbs. So it's not enough to just stop and not be able to do it. I feel that there's more pressure to carry on and do everything you could possibly do to, eke out those few drops.
So let's chat. I mean, you are a career woman, you do a lot of things, and this is the third one on the way.
Third one, yes.
So how are you then balancing the having to breastfeed and then being a career woman?
with my first one, I wasn't as hectic, although I was working.
Yeah.
It wasn't as hectic. I'd literally rush home at 4 o'clock, 4:30 to go feed
rock
quickly.
hard
With
boobs.
rock hard boobs. They're full, they're leaking. Sometimes you've got patches here
Yeah.
from all the leaking boob. But with my second one, I mean, he was a week and a half, and I was sitting with him in a boardroom, and I was breastfeeding. And I was sitting with him in meetings, and I'd take him, breastfeed, put him back into his pram or his car seat. So I think you sort of, like I was saying before we went on air to Tanya, that my first experience with breastfeeding publicly was so affirming because I had my godfather there, and it was at a restaurant. We were celebrating my my god sister's birthday, and I wanted to breastfeed. My mom was like, here's a shawl, cover. And my godfather was like, we're all eating, the baby also needs to eat, why must she cover?
Yes.
So it was so affirming.
And coming from a man
Coming
as
from
well,
a man,
yeah.
exactly, and you know, a mature man who's also raised children, to the point where anyone who came at me, it was like, I'm feeding my baby, why are you telling me what to do?
Yeah.
So it's, I think for every woman, it's very different. And also when you're a career woman, you sort of, when you have that first affirming experience, you can tell any man off, especially when it's somebody you hold so highly in regard.
So speaking of being a career woman and balancing, you know, the baby, the breastfeeding, there is a member of parliament from Australia. She has a job, she had a baby, she had to breastfeed. Look where she did it.
Thanks, Deputy President. I ask that General Business Notice of Motion number 388, standing in my name for today, relating to black lung disease, be taken as a formal motion.
So the question is that the motion is moved by Senator Waters be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye.
Mommy passed the bill today and she breastfed you in front of the entire country. You go. So have you ever been shamed for breastfeeding in public, Tanya?
Never.
Really?
Okay, granted, I've always been covered up. Not because anyone is judging me.
Yeah.
I just never felt comfortable.
Yeah.
I'd feed everywhere covered up. I'd feed at weddings, Hyde Park Shopping Centre. I had no issue with it, but I just didn't feel comfortable. So that's a me thing. I was never shamed for it.
What do you feel about it? Because I mean, we're taking abuse as women. The things that are being said, it's like, breasts are sexual objects and you guys are sexualizing yourselves. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's natural, it's life-giving, it's, it should be done without this judgment and the sexualizing aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I wish it was more, open, and I wish women could do it without the harassment.
I'm a big fan of being able to see the other side
Yes.
of the argument at all times, so that just to take yourself out of your I'm right thing. When you're thinking about this breastfeeding in public, I mean, there's even protection because people have attacked women who are breastfeeding.
Yes.
When you feel that violence is going to solve the fact that you're upset that I'm breastfeeding, I just feel like I'm not dealing with humans any longer, right? Is there a bit of you that can kind of understand why people don't want us breastfeeding in public?
I can, and I can also, I mean, before being a mom and before having my life-changing experience of having children, and, when a child wants what they want it now.
Yeah.
And you can't exactly mute a child's cry and say, I'll come to it later. But I can understand where people are coming from. And also, as the most judgmental people are usually abo mama and women. And I think it's from that point of, just in case.
Because they're constantly wanting to make life comfortable for men. So
yes.
you doing this is going to make men uncomfortable.
Yes,
don't do it.
you're making us uncomfortable because you're making men uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So please just cover up.
I struggle when we have campaigns around this. So now there's a campaign to ease people's minds into us breastfeeding. Can it work, a campaign? And what's the point of departure? What do we say? What do we do?
I have no idea. I mean, you've seen these campaigns where, 500 breastfeeding women get together at a cafe or restaurant. It's happened overseas. And their message is, we can breastfeed everywhere. Which is great. I'm not sure it's going to change the perception, or it's going to make everyone comfortable seeing them breastfeeding. It's probably actually exacerbating the issue. Because instead of having one, you're seeing 500.
I think it's because we're in a patriarchal society, and for as long as we have these campaigns or these social movements in isolation, and it doesn't involve the actual psyche of men, we're never going to get anywhere, because we're so caught up in trying to protect what men think. what men feel about us, how men react to us, that it becomes who we are as women.
But we're saying that moms or women are judges as well. So it's not only...
But they're doing it because you might just lure my husband. You know, like having your boob out, I don't
So
think
the
my
judgment
husband
from
likes
women-
it, so therefore I don't like it.
Is it not also, I'm judging you because I couldn't do it, or that's not for me, or I think it's, you know...
I think the main argument is always because, you know, breasts are regarded as part of a sexual act, is that you're naked in front of my man, stop it. I get that part a lot.
Yeah.
So I also get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I do get the sexualized part a lot.
Yeah.
Listen, we're not saying goodbye to any of our guests. They'll return later on the way. If you're diabetic or HIV positive, can you breastfeed? We'll find out after the break. And welcome back. So we'll tell you why we don't have time to make you feel comfortable about women breastfeeding in public. Women are faced with much bigger problems when it comes to breastfeeding. There are diabetic women, women with cancer, HIV positive mothers who are uncertain about how their illness will affect their unborn child. So it's a good thing that we've got a doctor in the house. Welcome, Dr. Sindi, as well as to Timo Lifshitz, a trained nurse and lactation consultant. Lactation consultant.
Lactation consultant.
So do you go like in maternity wards and teach us how to latch?
So either I'll go through to the hospitals or I'll see them at home if they've already got home challenges. So they've already been discharged from the hospital and oftentimes they don't get good enough advice there. And then they come to me with a problem. The nipples are already cracked, bleeding, can't get the baby to latch, and now there's problems there.
I need for you to stress how common it is for you to struggle to breastfeed, because also we're programmed to think if I'm not doing it, either my baby's not taking to me, they don't love me, I don't love them. So please, can you just stress how common it is and you can fix it?
It is so common. I mean, can I tell you, I mean, I worked as a midwife at Genesis, and I mean, I helped other women to breastfeed, you know, before I fell pregnant. And then when I had my daughter, I was kind of like, I got this, you know, I mean, come on, I've done it.
Teach people, come on.
I cannot tell you how hard it was. I had to see a Leslie leader and 2 lactation consultants to get it right for myself that had actually a medical knowledge and experience with other women. And that's what made me become a lactation consultant, because I didn't want other people to struggle as much as I did.
Dr. Sindi, finally we have you here. Welcome to the show. I feel like I know you, having followed you on social media for years. Thank you so much you're so ready and willing to give advice, you know, in a normal way. You're not like, I'm a doctor, I'll take care of this. You're very calm and you're very easy, and this is why you're here today. Personally for you, when you were breastfeeding, did it happen immediately? Did you struggle? Did you decide to breastfeed?
Well, you know, because I work with HIV and I'm always encouraging moms to exclusively breastfeed, I use myself as a guinea pig because I needed to know what it's like to be on the other side. Okay, so that's the real reason why I breastfed. And it wasn't easy. Exclusive breastfeeding means you take your baby everywhere, like to the toilets, to the shops, everywhere. And that's it. You are your baby's everything. And so because I've done it and I've been through it and I've had the cracked nipples, I've had, you know, swollen breasts, I've had everything. I can talk mommies through it when they're going through it. And it's really been great for me because one of the myths about HIV is that if you're living with HIV, you can't breastfeed. And yes, we come from an era where HIV positive moms did not breastfeed. But that has all changed. Everyone's on treatment now. And if you're virally suppressed, you can breastfeed. And that's a message that I'm spreading. And, you know, we're breaking that whole thing that, oh, if you're positive, you can't breastfeed. Because there's still some sectors of society that insist that mommies mustn't breastfeed if they're HIV positive. And that's why it's important for me to exclusively breastfeed and to go through all of that.
Okay, so we've got a voice that I want to go to just now, just following on what you're saying. Breastfeeding when you're HIV positive and that you need to exclusively breastfeed. There was a time we discussed on the show, I just want to rehash on it. The reason for that, if you mix between breast milk and formula, the formula could be harsh and cut.
Well, the formula scrapes away the baby's stomach lining, and then HIV has a chance to penetrate. And the other thing with exclusive breastfeeding is that baby remedies are a bit of a problem. So you have mommies giving that thing that I don't like, the water that everyone says you must buy, and all these colic drops and so on. That's also part of not, you know, mixing. So those baby drops and hardly menses and all of those things are also not good. And that's why I'm always on social media preaching the same thing over and over again, because the message has gone through about exclusive breastfeeding, but there's grannies and there's aunties and there's secondary caregivers insisting on all these drops and all these syrups and everything else.
Okay, Timo, I'm coming to you. Can we please roll the voice note?
Hi, mummies. Okay, about this breastfeeding in public, you know, it's a controversial issue, you know. With rights comes responsibilities. I feel I should breastfeed my child in public if I need to. But what I do when I am in the position where I have to breastfeed my child in public is that I carry a little blanket with me where I can cover her so that the next person doesn't feel uncomfortable, with me breastfeeding my child. And also, I do not want to be told that, get a room or you should be at home while you're breastfeeding in public, while you're out with the child in public if you're breastfeeding. I don't want to be told those things. So, yeah.
Now, the reason I have you here, Timo, is that I want to stress that if this whole thing of breastfeeding in public, it's really at the bottom of the food chain in terms of problems we care about when it comes to breastfeeding. Yeah. Am I right in assuming that some women will experience depression and sadness whilst breastfeeding due to hormonal changes?
Definitely, especially in the first few days after birth. Remember that the hormone levels are dropping rapidly because now the baby is born, so the body doesn't need to maintain that pregnant state. Yeah. So oftentimes then you'd get your baby blues. Now it's coupled with your postpartum body, the breasts are leaking everywhere, they're huge, you can't get the baby to latch. And it can actually progress to postpartum depression because now there's so much guilt. You already have your own mommy guilt and no one talks enough about it. You guilt yourself for everything that you did or didn't do. And now we've also got other people telling us, oh, your baby's starving, because they don't realize normal breastfed newborn behavior is different to that of a normal formula, fed baby that is,
And I only found out at the hospital after I gave birth that it's not milk that comes out immediately. It's some, I don't know what to call it now. What is it called? That other stuff that comes out.
The colostrum.
That one, and it's good for the child.
It's so good. And literally, I mean, if you look here, this is the size of baby's stomach. So at birth, they only need that amount. That is 5 mils of colostrum. And then we get what we call the formula top-up trap, where they'll give 35 mils at birth, and now we're expanding to about a 7-day stomach. So of course that baby's now not going to be satisfied with the breast milk, and that's where the problems come in, is that now we top up with formula, we don't have baby on the breast, we're not stimulating the breast to produce more milk. It's really such a cascade, it just gets worse.
Stimulating, is that I must be doing exercises?
So not really. So basically stimulating the breast means that baby should be latched on and effectively draining milk from the breast.
So the more they suck, the more milk
you'll produce. So it's a supply and demand situation. So the beginning part of your breastfeeding journey is hormonal. It's going to happen whether you choose to breastfeed or not. But after that, once your milk has come in, usually around the 3rd to 6th day with lactogenesis 2, the milk volume increases, and that moves to mostly an autocrine, so it's supply and demand with the hormones of prolactin and oxytocin.
So what you're saying is the more you do it, is the more you'll do it.
Exactly.
Dr. Sindi, let's talk about diabetic moms. We've touched on HIV. Diabetic moms, is there a different method for them? Is there a different treatment?
Well, we want them to be controlled. We want their sugars to be well controlled, and they can breastfeed. I think, they need to, because their babies have needs like any other mom's needs. So there's no exclusion for them to breastfeed unless they're on medication, which can't be, taken. And then of course they can't breastfeed. But most of the mommies can breastfeed. Okay,
so we've covered HIV, we've covered diabetic. You would know this better than anyone. When should I not be breastfeeding? Outside of drinking alcohol and taking drugs.
Okay, well, taking drugs is a problem.
Yes.
So if you're taking drugs, you should not be breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Alcohol, I could be controversial about this.
Let's talk about alcohol. Or coffee, because a friend of mine was like, oh, I'm craving coffee, I can't have a cup of coffee, but I'm breastfeeding and the child's not going to sleep. I'm like, really?
Well, a glass of wine won't kill you. No. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say.
A glass of wine won't kill you during pregnancy, so I'd assume...
Well, I'm not going to say that. Okay. A glass of wine won't kill you when you're breastfeeding. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say about that. So the occasional glass of wine won't kill you, so you can have an occasional glass of wine. But if you're on drugs, obviously we don't want you to be breastfeeding. And I think most of it is because, you might not always be compos mentis when you're handling your baby. There's other issues that you're going through, so let's sort all of those issues out. And, you know, postpartum depression is also very hectic. So if you have postpartum depression and you're on really strong medication, then of course you wouldn't breastfeed under those circumstances either, because some of the medication is not good for lactation.
And,
yeah.
And I find as well, you know, that oftentimes a lot of the doctors are misinformed about what medications the mom firstly can take.
Exactly.
So oftentimes they don't prescribe a breastfeeding-friendly alternative which may be available.
Yeah.
And I also find that a lot of doctors recommend moms to pump and dump, so I'm not a big fan of that term. But you can actually have some alcohol and you can actually still live your life even with a baby. So oftentimes, you know, if you are well enough to drive, then you are well enough to breastfeed your baby. So what they should be advising is just feed your baby first, then have your wine or whatever. It takes about an hour per unit, just as with normally. And then you can feed your baby again. So we're not also letting our moms live.
Thank you. And, and a happy mom means a happy baby.
Exactly.
Timo, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Sindi, you staying with us. A warm and thank you and goodbye to Timo Lifshitz. If you still have questions or concerns, find a lactation consultant in your area or speak to your doctor or nurses at your nearest baby clinic. Still to come, inspiring stories about recovery from postnatal depression. And welcome back. Dr. Sindi and Olwethu Leshabane are with us again. Two moms who found inner peace through blogging openly about the ups and the downs of life, parenting, and everything in between. Most of us have heard of post-baby blues, but what happens when the sadness just doesn't pass and you're diagnosed with postnatal depression? So did the words ever come out of your mouth, I have postnatal depression?
I think years after, years after diagnosis. Yeah, it was, I think, maybe a year or two, a year and a half or two after my diagnosis.
Was that hindsight?
In hindsight, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I just went through PPD. That was me, a black girl? Oh. So it was literally way after. And when I was diagnosed, I was with my husband. He was the one who was like, you know what, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, you're crazy.
Is this the first child or second child?
Second child.
Second child, okay.
And
the first one was easy peasy?
The first one was easy peasy. The second one was a bit of a roller coaster. And for me, my solace was my work. So taking my child to work, you know, I was being a mother, and I didn't realize how absent I was. And how absent I was at home. And I remember my husband came home one day, there was no food. And he was like, but you know, here at home, you're the manager here. So if you don't know what's going on here, who knows? And I think it was from that, then he was like, no, man, something's wrong. You know, my girlfriend's gone, my wife is gone, my person is gone. And I went to doctors, and it was when a homeopath diagnosed me and said, sir, your wife has very bad depression.
For you, did the words ever come out of your mouth where you like telling someone or yourself, I have postnatal depression?
Well, I remember my whole breakdown happened 2 years after Marnie was born. So I was telling people that I'm clinically depressed, and no one believed me, because I'm always happy-go-lucky and always chirpy and stuff. But, you know, the symptoms crept up on me. I think, and it was only in therapy that I was able to trace it back to Marnie, because I'm a perfectionist, so everything must go well. So my baby shower was on a Saturday at Bliss. Bliss was owned by Ukatleho, and I was in hospital. So I was like, what? This is not happening, you know? So that's from there, I was very unhappy with the way the pregnancy was going. I had preeclampsia, that was not part of the plan. Then when Marnie was born, he went to ICU, so everything just went wrong, and I was miserable, you know? But it only caught up with me in April 2013, and that's when I realized that, oh crap, something's wrong, you know?
So you say, so it's 2 years after he's born?
2 years after. So the thing is, you go into autopilot, you know, so you know that something's up. So I think you were on autopilot as well. You know that something's up. So you're drowning in work. You're doing all these other things to fill this hole. You have a hole in your heart, but you can't put your finger on it. So on the outside, you're acting normal, but on the inside, you're getting emptier and emptier and emptier.
And it should be this fulfilling time, right?
Exactly. And then one day, it's done. The bucket is empty, and you can't function. And that's what happened to me on my birthday, in 2013. Then I was admitted, which is the best time of my life, and I came back, and now I'm back with a bang.
I think that the most interesting part of it is now. And years later, when my husband used to take lots of pictures of the kids, and I was very absent in all of that, and I was very absent-minded. It's later when I see all the pictures and I see the growth of my kids and the birth pictures and everything, and how, You know, I had 2 under 2 at the time. You see all of that. I missed out on all of that.
Yeah.
Oh, I was there. You took that picture, but I wasn't there.
But you're pregnant now. I know it can't. I know you can't tell that she's pregnant. She's actually pregnant. She really could pop anytime. I mean, we could be going to the hospital right after this at 7 o'clock. But don't you have anxiety of it coming again with number 3?
I think because I know the signs and I have random flare-ups. I mean, it does. I don't think it completely goes away because it's attached also to your hormones. It's attached to things that are happening around you, how they make you feel, how your space makes you feel. You know, there's certain things that will trigger the depression all over again. But when you're aware, and my husband is very aware, he knows what to look out for as well. So yes, you do have the fear that it's going to come back, but you know exactly what you look out for, and you know, okay, cool, I think I might be depressed again. And you sort of just ride it, and you know the wave that you're on, just get through it. Let me just get through this.
Is there a timeline, you know, so could I be, you know, could I have postnatal depression until my child's 6 years old, or?
It can happen at any time. It can happen at any time. Because remember, most of us are so good at keeping up appearances. And I mean, you mentioned, oh, I'm a black girl with depression. That's another problem that we have, is that we think depression is for white people, it's for sabelungu. And you know what, it can happen to anybody. So a lot of black women are living with depression, but they're keeping up appearances because who are they going to speak to about this white person's disease? Who are they going to tell that I'm depressed? I mean, with me, I told my mother, and my aunt and my mom came and they prayed for me, and there's nothing wrong with praying, and they, you know, they prayed in tongues and everything else, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I needed a doctor. I needed to be seen by a psychiatrist. And I think most people that I talk to, especially in the DMs on Twitter, everything is fine. I can talk about therapy, I can talk about, you know, see a psychologist and so on, but the moment I mention medication, it's like this wall comes up. And so most people are stuck at the medication part. So I needed medication. I was so depressed, I needed medication. I needed mood stabilizers, I needed antidepressants, I needed everything, you know, thrown at me to bring me back to what I am today.
So what, do they take your blood and check where the imbalances are?
No. So the psychiatrist is able to look at you and they listen to your story, and they figure out what your symptoms are, and then they can decide what's the best mix for you. So I needed everything, you know. But most people, the moment you bring up medication, I don't know if it's because of the media or the movies, but people think, oh, I'm going to get addicted to this stuff. You can't get addicted to psychiatric drugs.
Okay. Also, do you know what it is? It's a dependency thing. Will I have to take this for the rest of my life?
And even if you do, if you're functional, we're happy. So I took medication for 4 years. And if I hadn't taken medication, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. So medication saved my life. So it's difficult to get people to start taking medication.
So now I'm looking for triggers because, I mean, both of you guys have husbands, right? So imagine you are a single mother, that no insight, you have no support, and you have postnatal depression. You know, we need to sit and put ourselves in that realm. What is a person to do?
So,
and who's because at least Neo spotted it in you. Who's there spotting it if you're by yourself?
I think for the most important thing that I always emphasize to women, especially women that have children and many children and they feel down, have an accountability partner. Find somebody, whether it's family, whether it's a friend, have somebody who's an accountability partner, whether it's your mother.
Who you're not afraid to be weak to, like
exactly, who you're not afraid to be vulnerable with, you know, who you're going to pick up the phone and say, I think I might be taking a dip. And for me, that happens to be my husband because he's my best friend. So, I mean, during the December period, I'll use an example. We didn't have a helper, and that's one of my triggers. I've got 2, you know, crazy kids who are 5 and 6 years old, 2 boys, and the house is a mess. And that for me is, you know, because I'm a perfectionist, much like you, Sindi. I want everything in its place. I want the house to be clean. I want the tiles spick and span. You know, now I wake up to a juice spill. That's going to drive me mad. So I know what those triggers are, and my husband knows how to tone me down and tell me everything's okay. Okay, so you two are still not going anywhere. We'll come back and we'll wrap up the show with you. If you or someone you know is showing symptoms of postnatal depression, contact the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, SADC. They have a 24-hour hotline. They're waiting to take your call. The number is on the screen. Did you know that you can donate breast milk or save a life? I didn't know this. Find out how when we come back. And welcome back to Real Talk right here on SABC 3. I'm now joined by Stasha Jordan from the South African Breast Milk Reserve Bank.
Thousands of infants die every year of preventable causes. The donation of human milk could help save these lives. Until my team mentioned this, I did not have an idea that there is a South African breast milk reserve bank.
Yes, absolutely. Human milk banking is quite a new field that has developed in South Africa in the last 20 years. And we're leaders in the world in the context of the number of human milk banks that we have and in breastfeeding promotion at large. So breast milk banking gains a lot of importance in the context of premature infants.
Okay.
So when a baby is born very low birth weight, and we're talking anything between 320 grams. So you can imagine a baby is born full term at 2.5 to 3.5 kgs. Here we're talking about see-through human beings, micro-premature, and mothers struggle to lactate. So we support moms who, for whatever reason, give birth, let's say, a 28-week gestation as opposed to 40. And we support them by giving their babies donated breast milk. Why? Because if you give these babies formula, they become very likely victims of an infection which is called necrotizing enterocolitis.
Why is breast milk better than formula in terms of the texture of it?
Well, you know, it's really because breast milk is from the human, designed for the human baby. And the human baby, as we said, is born with a certain microbiome in the gut and a certain physiognomy, not to say we are humans. Formula is made from cow's milk or soya, and cows have calves that weigh 60 kgs. So you can imagine that the metabolites in formula are very different to those of breast milk. So formula is rough on the gut. It causes the gut to strip from all its healthy mucus. It will block it, bloat it, and perforate it, and then it will rot. That's what happens to premature babies that are not breastfed. Yeah, and then the babies die, which is the most unfortunate part of this. And it's a real health burden on the budgets, on the parents, you know, on life.
It's not a preference. No. You don't prefer to have the breast milk.
No.
You need.
No, it's an emergency procedure, like donated blood. So you do not give a 600-gram baby formula if you are a healthcare practitioner that is you know, with the times.
It's criminal.
It's criminal because you are actually endangering this baby's life. So it is really important that the healthcare professional and the mother understand that unlike with a full-term baby where that is not an issue, a premature gut is a premature gut.
So what's the procedure? Walk me through it. Do I walk in and sit
not
down
at all.
and machines go...
That's quite a vision of human milk banking. No, not at all. You know, we have a wide network of hospitals and healthcare professionals that support this initiative. So the mother will sign up online. We will send a nurse home to do the bloods and to make sure that the mom is screened in terms of lifestyle screening. There is a screening process. A lot of mothers do not qualify because a lot of mommies in South Africa are taking a lot of medication. So mommy must be medication free for that purpose. And, you know, obviously possibly HIV free and no hepatitis, no syphilis. And then we give them containers and we collect from them once a month when they're ready. The breast milk is collected frozen, it's processed, it's pasteurized. We do a lot of quality processes on it, and then it is dispatched as it is prescribed. So it falls under the Human Tissue Act, and it's regulated under the regulatory framework for human milk banking. In South Africa, we have over 30 human milk banks.
And what's your storage like, and how long can you store it?
Well, depending for the use, for premature babies, we prefer to use any breast milk that is 3 months from expression. 3 to 6 months is what we push the limit to. For full-term babies, because there is an outpatient program. For bigger babies that are hypoallergenic or hyperallergic, to be precise, the babies that are hyperallergic, that will break out in a rash on the first bottle of formula. We've had quite a few that get hospitalized. Those babies can access full-term milk that is stored from 6 to 12 months from expression.
Are you seeing more of a demand in Cape Town? Because obviously there's a water crisis and Cape Town's having huge diarrhea issues.
Well, you know, I was looking at some of the Instagram material and there is this question around hygiene, you know, and normalization of breastfeeding. So me pulling my breast out in public is not a hygiene issue. But when we degrade and shame women that are breastfeeding in public, we are pushing them to formula feed or to substitute feed. Because it creates a whole stigma and, okay, why are you already not formula feeding? So let's actually look at a real life context. We are approaching day 0 in Cape Town. The water quality is poor. 13% of the fatalities, meaning the babies that die under the age of 5, dying from diarrhea. The hygiene issue doesn't arise from supporting breastfeeding mothers. It actually arises when you don't. So I invite everyone to reflect on what will we do on day 0. Is formula feeding an option? No. So in fact, women in Cape Town should really start relactating, whipping their breasts out quite literally.
Breastfeeding for longer.
Because breastfeeding may actually be the only safe food source past 11 July. So this is things that we never consider in the greater scheme of the comfort. We think about breastfeeding in restaurants, and we think about breastfeeding in the I'm talking about cholera, I'm talking about rotavirus. This is a health issue. So this is what happens when you have a drought. So there will be no water to mix formula with. So we need to make eco-friendly decisions that actually prioritize the health of the baby. So, you know, the question that you ask, is it dignity or is it hygiene? Is it safe?
Yeah. That's all you need to know. And in terms of the screening process, it doesn't matter. I can be a black woman. I give my breast milk. An Indian child can benefit from it. A white child, a Chinese child. It doesn't matter.
Breast milk has no race.
Ah, there we go. So breast milk has no race.
Breast milk is all some shade of beige. It's milk.
It looks like it's got all the nutrients.
Some of it looks a bit grey, some of it a bit blue, but no, we don't look at that.
All right, so where can people go? So obviously I can't breastfeed. I can't give you milk now because
You're not breastfeeding
I'm not
at the moment.
So if I'm currently breastfeeding and I'm touched and I'm moved, where should I go?
Well, there are across the country, there are a variety of hospitals that have human milk banks. So you can go onto Google and Google human milk banking or breast milk banking in South Africa, and you can find a breast milk bank nearer to us. Otherwise, you can sign up with us online, which is www.sabr.org.za. But we also sign up in a lot of the hospital environments. There is a human milk bank. There are a lot of human milk banking initiatives. There is the KZN Breastfeeding Initiative. There is Itembeletu Human Milk Bank. There is Milk Matters in Cape Town that is collecting breast milk, and they really need a lot of milk right now. So there are a lot of facilities at Human Milk Bank.
Stasha Jordan, you have blown my mind. You have blown my mind, and I love your passion. Please keep this up. Woo, okay, so send water and breast milk to Cape Town. We say thank you and goodbye to Stasha Jordan. As mentioned, if you'd like to show your support or donate breast milk, go to www.sabr.org.za or call the number that you see on the screen now. Do not go anywhere, because after this, we talk love and intimacy after having a baby. Welcome back. We've been talking breastfeeding and the mental and physical health of mothers. Parenting is a life-changing and joyous experience, but what about love and intimacy after the baby? How do couples find their way back into each other's arms after the 15th diaper change on that day? you guys are laughing. That's why the team was like, we have to, let's talk about this. 2 kids in, 1 on the way. Do you guys diarize, like, time for each other?
No, I tried that, we failed.
Really?
I think more than anything, the frustration comes in when, you know, like you were saying, the diaper changes.
Yeah.
The stress, the late nights. And then you sort of like, okay, where are we supposed to fit all of this in?
Yeah.
All of this love. Guy, wait.
Does it get better as the child gets older? Or, Tanya, if you're not managing and setting boundaries in the beginning, it's just going to be downhill?
Yeah, I think so. I think you need to make a point of looking after yourself and your relationship early on. 2 weeks after my birth, I was out having wine. Yeah. The best wine of my life after 9 months of abstinence.
Yeah.
And, you know, I placed great emphasis on self and relationship.
Dr. Sindi, you were nodding as Tanya said that about, you know, 2 weeks after she out there take care of yourself. Weigh in on this.
Yeah, well, for me, I think sleep training is very important. And this is where Meg Foray, she wrote these amazing books, the Sleep Sense series. And those books saved my life because I was one of those mummies. I was trying to be a perfect mum. So I was just doing everything, you know, and it didn't work out. So I read these books. I was like, oh, okay, so if I do this and I do that, my kids will sleep. And if the kids are sleeping, then I can do whatever. I mean, I don't sleep much in any case. So when the kids were sleeping, I was able to do a lot of other things, and that's really how Marinus and I kept the spark alive, because it's not nice, diapers, your breasts are leaking, and it takes its toll on you as a mom.
You can't wear that dress.
Or that lingerie.
You can't wear that thing that makes you feel good, so you have to find other things. All of you are 2 kids and more, ne?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the transition from the firstborn to the secondborn, because when there's one, in fact, I read this meme on the internet, it said, what's it like having 2 kids? Well, jump into the ocean with 1 child in your hand and then have someone chuck another one at you. That's what it's like.
Pretty much.
So what's the transition and what's the systems there as well?
I think for me, the first one, it was like, okay, you read up, but you're like, okay, I'll wing this. It can't be too tough.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of thrown right into the deep end. And then the second one, you sort of still figure, well, for me, I was sort of still figuring out the first one, and then the second one came. So it was literally, like you said, throw me the second one into the ocean, and then, like, I don't know, but we'll see. So, bona pambili.
Yeah.
And, it was a hectic transition, and I think for my husband as well, we were both figuring it all out. We were both trying to get this thing right.
And you're
it's
talking a lot,
now.
because you have to be honest. You can't be quiet.
My husband's a big talker. I'm not a talker. And I've had to learn to talk. So he's huge on communication, and he's huge on talking, and he's also very hands-on. So for us, we were figuring it all out, but also figuring each other out, because it's also a young marriage.
Yeah. Tanya, your child, there's an age
yes,
gap.
I've got an 8-year age gap, which has been amazing. So while I'm with the sea with one, the other one is swimming and looking after himself with his friends.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's...
Because we always get told, no, have them quickly so that they can raise each other.
Yeah.
I'm not for that, hey. I'm happy with a bit of a gap between.
Yeah, and it's a lovely gap. So, kind of the one fends for himself. Shame. He has no choice. While I look after the baby toddler, and it's lovely. And she adores her big brother.
Yeah.
And he gets it. There's no jealousy, insecurity, because he completely gets that, his little sister has different needs.
Because when you speak intimacy, we always run to think it's intimacy with your man, but it's also intimacy with the children that are already there, because they were used to mommy being mine and I had all the attention. Who is that? So with you, do you set specific times where you spend time alone with number 1 and then number 2? How do you work it?
I think, when Mani came, Unandi wanted to know, when this child is going back to its mom. She really didn't get it that this child is here to stay. So that is really interesting. But my cousins were there, and everyone was hands-on. So she had to adjust very, very quickly. But the most important thing about the second child is that you do everything cheaper the second time around. So at the beginning, with the first child, you buy everything.
It's the pan that's got the mag wheels.
Exactly. And with the second child, you're like, we don't need that. We're going to recycle that. And so that's the thing about the second child, and the third and the fourth. Everything just gets cheaper in terms of what you're going to buy, and you're not so swayed into buying things that you don't need. But date night is important. You need to pencil in the diary, okay, we're going to have sex on this day, because it's important. If you don't do it, you forget it, and you end up not doing it. So yes, some people have sex diaries, and it really helps. There's nothing wrong with that.
Another quote that I saw on social media, and I was just like, yes, being a career mom is working like you don't have children and being a mother like you don't have work.
Yeah.
Are you agreeing with that?
Yes.
Dissect that for me.
I think they become your occupation at home.
Yeah.
They become your everything at home. And equally so, when you count those children, count your husband too. He's your firstborn.
Okay.
So they become your occupation at home. They become what you need, you sort of, what encompasses everything in you when you're at home. And it is multiple jobs being a mom and a wife and a working person.
Yeah.
It's multiple jobs, and you're juggling
all these at once. Are you able to tell people at work that I can't do that because I've got 3 kids?
We have to learn to, and I think when you get into that first HR meeting where you're setting out your contracts of employment, it is very important for us as women to articulate the fact that you're a mother, you're a wife, and from this time to this time, your family is occupying your time, and some things are beyond the call of duty.
But isn't that difficult when, as women, we're just still so happy to have a job? Forget the fact that now I must go in there and have demands. And they're not demands, they're just little stipulations, but in your head, you're just like, okay, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I think it's a tough one.
How do you navigate it?
I'm not sure. I'm navigating it very well.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me, but that's the thing. I'm not going to lie to you. My work comes first. My family has allowed me to put my work first.
Yeah.
And I've got a supportive husband, I've got a supportive in-law family, and a supportive extended family, and they've allowed me to put my work first. So you don't have to navigate or try and balance it out or whatever.
I think you can also
balance.
choose that your work comes first, because there's this notion that because you're a mother, you know, it must be your first point of duty and your beyond end all. You can be like, guys, I like to work.
Yeah, so
and it's my love, it's my passion.
Yeah,
And I also think some women are just great at really being, as much as your work comes first, you're maternal. You're great at also being mom whilst you're typing away. You know, having that, you know, Marnie's talking to you and you respond back whilst typing. Some women are very maternal in that way. But much like having a sex diary, if you're not maternal, you need to be able to switch off for that hour in the day to be able to plug into the kids, to plug into the family.
I mean, for me, I don't even think it's maternal anything. It's just a matter of, okay, what matters the most to Nandi? So at the moment, Unandi wants me to do the school run. She wants other kids to see me dropping her off at school. So I've factored my life, I've changed my life around that I start work at 10 so that I can drop my child off at school. It makes her happy. When I walk into a class with her to say hi to her teacher, she's happy for the rest of the week. I do it once a week. So every Thursday is teacher day, you know. And that's all that matters to Nandi. Everything else she can do with her dad. But she wants me to drop her off at school. So I've done that, and then I can focus on my work.
Listen, guys, we're out of time, but we could talk forever. We really could. I mean, the mommy diaries don't end. They just get bigger, more interesting, more entertaining, but filled with love. A huge thank you to all my guests, Dr. Sindi van Sale, Olwethu Leshabane, Tanya Kravsky, Timur Lifshitz, and Stasha Jordan. Yes, you guys brought all the surnames today, didn't you? My word. Next week, Monday, Dr. Thandile Ndlovu is in studio to inspire all of us. She's a woman set on empowering communities and being a trailblazer in the construction industry. From myself, Anele, and the entire Real Talk team, good night.